£54,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, it's 6 o'clock. Here are your latest GB News headlines. The government says spending decisions have been made harder by the recent U-turn on welfare changes. This comes as the Chancellor says it's impossible for her to rule out tax rises in the autumn budget. Earlier today, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson was asked by Camilla Tominey if she could confirm the government's position.
When it comes to future decisions in the budget, you know, those are matters for the Chancellor. It is important that the numbers add up, that we adhere to our fiscal rules, and we've got a clear plan for making sure the country continues to see economic growth.
But it sounds like you're not ruling out tax rises.
Well, these are not decisions for me as Education Secretary. They're matters for the Chancellor. This will all be taken together in the budget. But what is critical, and what we've always been clear about, is that getting economic growth is absolutely essential, because if we grow our economy, we're in a much stronger position where it comes to our ability to invest.
The Conservative Party say they want to ban foreigners from claiming key disability benefits to reduce the cost of Britain's welfare bill. Badenoch's party is calling on the Prime Minister to restrict personal independence payments and sickness top-ups to universal credit to UK citizens only. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says this will set a clear dividing line between the Tories, Labour and Reform.
The government should come forward with a discussion document to look at this whole area, because we do believe that British citizenship should mean something. And when it comes to welfare, we know that the costs are ever spiralling upwards, and we need to get that under control. And that's a big dividing line between ourselves and Labour, and indeed between ourselves and Reform, who want to spend more, for example, by removing the two-child benefit cap. So we believe there should be a serious discussion about this in terms of arresting the size of the welfare bill.
Some breaking news for you now. The ship that was attacked in the Red Sea earlier today off the coast of Yemen is now taking on water as the crew prepare to abandon the vessel, according to the UK Maritime Trade Operations. The UK MTO says a vessel was engaged by multiple small vessels which have opened fire with small arms and self-propelled grenades 51 nautical miles southwest of Yemen's coast. Armed security teams have returned fire and the situation is ongoing. We'll of course bring you the very latest as we have it here on GB News. But moving on, Metropolitan Police boss Sir Mark Rowley has called for the creation of police mega forces in England. He says bigger and fewer forces would mean officers would be able to share modern technology and would reduce expensive governance. Sir Mark says it would be the first serious reform of our policing model in over 60 years. The death toll has risen to at least 69 people, including 21 children in the US state of Texas, after heavy rain caused by flash flooding. The Guadalupe River burst its banks at around 4 a.m. local time on Friday, with as much as 10 inches of heavy rain falling in just a few hours overnight in central Kerr County. President Trump has signed a major disaster declaration for the state, saying, "God bless the families and God bless the state of Texas." Elon Musk says he has set up a new political party in the wake of his falling out with the US president. The billionaire businessman claims he has taken the first steps in establishing the America Party. This comes after asking his social media followers if he should do so in an online poll. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie, and there's more from me in an hour's time.
Good morning and welcome to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State for Education, will join me. As the Labour government marks its first anniversary, what's her summary of the past 12 months? And has she spoken to Chancellor Rachel Reeves after she cried in the Commons? I'll also be speaking to the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, Mel Stride. What do the Conservatives make of the watered-down welfare bill and what impact it might have on the economy? He's written to the OBR. We ask him why. Rosie Duffield, the MP for Canterbury, will be here to reflect on what the future might have in store for the Labour Party, with Jeremy Corbyn, of all people, back in the fray. And the pollster Scarlett Maguire will be here to discuss the latest polling numbers. Can Reform win a majority? We've got another big show coming up, so do not even think of going anywhere. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, joins me now. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you so much for coming in. Have you spoken to the Chancellor since Wednesday? How is she?
Yes, we've been in touch. She's great. I mean, Rachel's made a tough stuff and she's just focused on getting on and doing her job.
So we've heard from multiple sources that she may have had a row, as well as with the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, with Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister. Her team is denying that. But what is going on inside the Labour Party that a senior female figure is in tears in the Commons?
Look, I wouldn't really know anything about that other than what Rachel has said is that she was dealing with a personal matter that morning. I think we can all understand that, you know, as politicians, we do have, you know, personal challenges we sometimes have to grapple with. And, you know, Rachel was back out there the next day launching the NHS 10-year plan with Wes Streeting and the Prime Minister. So, you know, she's a tough cookie and she's doing fine.
OK. You have big spending plans in your own department. We've got this announcement of the kind of rebooting of Sure Start. That's going to cost £500 million. I believe that's already being taken from the education budget as it stands. But we've now had this U-turn on welfare, following the U-turn on winter fuel. That now means that the Chancellor isn't going to have several billion that she thought she'd have for spending plans, including on schools. So does that mean that tax rises are inevitable now come autumn?
But I think we all knew that the public finances were in a tight position. That was what we inherited from the Conservatives. But at the spending review, we made different choices about what we were going to invest in, and that's why today I'm able to announce revitalised local family support services with new Best Start family hubs that will provide an enormous boost to families. And where it comes to future decisions in the budget, you know, those are matters for the Chancellor. It is important that the numbers add up, that we adhere to our fiscal rules, and we've got a clear plan for making sure the country continues to see economic growth.
But it sounds like you're not ruling out tax rises.
Well, these are not decisions for me as Education Secretary. They're matters for the Chancellor. This will all be taken together in the budget. But what is critical, and what we've always been clear about, is that getting economic growth is absolutely essential, because if we grow our economy, we're in a much stronger position where it comes to our ability to invest.
When it comes to the number of teachers in schools, now we remember the pledge at the very beginning of Labour's term in office, where you said that we were having to accept the VAT increase, the VAT being applied to private school fees, to 6,500 teachers. Schools Week has reported that actually these aren't new teachers. Some of them are already in post, and that primary teachers have been left out of these numbers. So can you tell me now, how many actual new teachers are being recruited as a result of the VAT hike?
So we are seeing big progress. We've got almost 2,300 more teachers in secondary, in FE and in the specialist sector. We're focusing our efforts there because that's where we see the biggest growth. Where it comes to primary, we know that because of the falling birth rate, we will sadly in the years to come just need fewer primary school teachers. That's the sad reality of where we are at the moment. But we are increasing the number of teachers. We're also seeing more teachers staying in the profession. So we're seeing really positive green shoots as we move towards our target of 6,500 teachers, as you say.
When will that 6,500 be met? Because it was in the manifesto and some of the language changed around it being new. So when are we getting the 6,500 teachers?
So that's over the course of the Parliament.
Right. But then Schools Week has also reported that if you take all teachers on board, and I note that you didn't mention primary school teachers when you listed the number of new teachers that we have, actually we've got 400 fewer teachers across the board now than we had last June. So actually the number of teacher numbers have gone down under Labour, despite a promise for them to go up by 6,500.
They're going up where we need them, which is in secondary, specialist and FE. Sadly, we do and will in the years to come need fewer primary school teachers because we've got fewer primary school children.
OK, this is the other confusing element to this. At the beginning, Labour said that you were putting VAT on private school fees to fund teachers. We then had a series of tweets from Keir Starmer suggesting that that money is actually funding affordable housing. Well, what is the money that the VAT hike has produced going on? Is it going on teachers or is it going on loads of other Labour policies?
So the amount of money that will be raised by the end of the Parliament is around £1.8 billion in terms of private schools, the VAT on private schools. Through the spending review and actually through the budget, we're already investing more beyond that. When you raise tax, of course, that money then goes into the Treasury and decisions are taken about how the money is spent. But through the spending review, we're investing now more in schools, in colleges, also in rebuilding more schools, and alongside that, expanding free school meals eligibility to more children, the biggest expansion in a generation, which actually far outstrips anything we're going to raise through private school fees. But I do think it was the right decision to raise money to reinvest in state education, and that is precisely what we're doing, alongside investing more, for example, in social and affordable housing. These are all decisions that have been taken through the spending review and demonstrate our determination to build a better and fairer country.
OK, but then you say better and fairer. The VAT on private school fees has adversely affected private school pupils, hasn't it? We've now got school closures up 67%. 18 private schools closed in 2024. Today, as of today, it's 31. And that's apparently affected twice as many SEN special needs children. So was it worth it to see schools closed down as Education Secretary?
So the number of private schools now is higher than it was last year. So we've actually got more private schools than last year. That's the figures that we have. What I would say, I mean, we discussed...
How can we have more than last year if 31 have closed? How many have opened?
There's more opening.
How many have opened in comparison to 31 closing?
I'd need to look at the exact number, but I know that from the numbers I've reviewed, the numbers of private schools are higher now than they were last year.
And in general, are you happy with schools closing?
Private schools open and close all the time. That's what's happened over decades. That's not a new phenomenon. What I'm determined to do is to make sure that we do invest more in state education. Now, I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have on this or any other topic, and I'll answer them as directly as I can. But I do have to say, we've gone around this quite a few times in the past when I've been on your show. Good to be with you again today. But actually, the vast majority of the people watching this will be sending their kids to state schools.
Yes.
And what they want to know is how we're improving standards in our state schools and delivering more teachers as we are into our state schools.
For clarification, I've got a foot in both camps because I send a child to state school and I send two children to private school. So I can see it from both sides of the coin. And the problem with people who have got their children in state schools, particularly in oversubscribed areas like mine, I live in Hertfordshire, is that they are affected because if private school children can't afford to go to their schools, they then apply to go to state schools. The state schools are then oversubscribed. So it does have an impact. There has been an exodus of private school children, so it is relevant to the state sector. But just in general, as an education secretary, how can you be happy with a situation where 31 schools have been closed down and presumably teachers have lost their jobs? You can't be happy with that scenario.
And private schools are private businesses. They make decisions about their funding model, about who they appeal to. But actually, as I say, we've got more private schools this year than we did last. What I'd also add, when you talk about movement of students between different parts of the sector, on the secondary school offer day this year, so when parents are offered their place at a secondary school, we actually saw an increase in the number of first choice offers. So the kind of the scaremongering, the talk that we apparently had about this would have a terrible and devastating effect, I'm afraid just isn't coming to pass.
All right. When we move on to you discussing the idea of the low birth rate, I think you said that earlier with regard to primary school teachers, and you're saying that you now want more people to have more children. Aren't you just channeling your inner Nigel Farage there? I mean, previously we've heard Labour politicians sort of try and push back on the Tories talking about family taxes or incentives to have a family, a kind of 2.4 children scenario. You've often said, oh no, that stigmatises single parents. Now you're advocating families and fathers.
No, I've always been really open in talking about, including from opposition, and talking about how Labour is the party of the family. But I believe that families come in different shapes and sizes. I was brought up in a single-parent family. That was a loving and supportive home, and that's as much of a family as a married couple as I am with children now. But I do think there is a good and strong Labour and left-wing argument for how people are making choices at the moment about family shape and about how many children they can have that are often rooted in decisions beyond their control. So some of those pressures that families are facing about the cost of living or housing. But I would also say just how lots of people, particularly young people, tell me they worry about becoming a parent because they think it's just too hard, that the support isn't available. So what I'm announcing today around more family support services through Best Start Family Hubs is about making sure that all parents, regardless of income or background, get the support they need around becoming a parent. It is a huge life-changing, wonderful life-changing event. But often in those early months and years, parents can find it hard, isolating, and having access to, to other parents, to family support services, to health services, that is all critical in how we just make parenting easier in this country. And that's what I'm talking about today.
Do you worry about fatherlessness? It was identified as a factor in particularly white working class boys falling behind in class by a report by the Centre for Social Justice called Lost Boys recently.
I want to make sure that all boys and young men have got really strong, good role models in their lives. Now, often that can come in the shape of a father, but sometimes it can be granddads, uncles, or actually role models within school as well. And that's why I really want to see more men working in primary schools and early years education so that our boys do have really fantastic role models to look up to and to aspire to be. And part of what I'm going to be setting out tomorrow through our Best Start in Life strategy is how we really improve early years education. And I think, making sure we've got more men working in early years and in primary schools is an important part of that, and supporting families of all shapes and sizes to thrive.
Final quick question. How worried are you about Jeremy Corbyn's new party with Zara Sultana?
They can do as they choose. We're just focused on actually getting on and making life better for people in this country.
Don't think they're going to steal votes from Labour?
Well, it's not got off to the best of starts so far for them, but that's for them. They can do as they choose. We're focused on the future, on delivering for working people across our country.
Bridget Phillipson, thank you very much for joining me in the studio this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know what? I'll say this of the Education Secretary. She's always willing to come in and make the argument. She insists she comes into the studio, unlike others in Labour. She actually engages with GB News, unlike the Prime Minister when it comes to my show, at least. I know he speaks to Chopper, Angela Rayner, the Deputy, and indeed the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. So maybe they should take a leaf out of Bridget Phillipson's book. Nothing to be afraid of, just some straight questions that require straight answers.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Shadow Chancellor of Exchequer Mel Stride, you should be hearing me now. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you, as ever, for coming on the show. Have you reached out to the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, since she was crying in the Commons on Wednesday?
Yes, I did. It was deeply distressing to have witnessed it, and of course I wasn't that far away, just opposite the table of the House there. Yes, so I messaged her shortly after PMQs, basically to say that I felt for her, and I hope that she was okay.
And there's a report in the Mail on Sunday this morning suggesting that the Tories warned Labour about Rachel's tears 17 minutes before PMQs. So did you see that, Mr. Stride? Did you see that she was distressed quite a long time before anyone else picked up on that?
No, I didn't, Camilla. In fact, the first I became aware of the situation was when Rachel came in and sat down, and then it was immediately apparent that everything was not really right. And as I say, really quite upsetting to see it, really.
It's very upsetting. And she's obviously cited personal reasons. But it is significant for the country, isn't it? If a Chancellor is seen to be in distress in public, it has implications for the markets. They didn't react well to what they were seeing. We then have resignation rumours flying around. Can we be honest here? Can we cut to the chase and say that perhaps this woman who did embellish her CV simply isn't up to the job?
Well, I think I don't want to sort of personalise this around what happened at Prime Minister's questions, which we are told that there was a personal reason why Rachel was very distressed, and I think we should just respect that. But stepping away from that situation, of course, absolutely terrible mistakes have been made with our economy, not just by this Chancellor but also by the Prime Minister, in terms of being a government that came in saying they weren't going to put up everybody's taxes, then clobbering businesses and destroying growth. They then have gone out and borrowed vast amounts of money, stoked up inflation, so we've got interest rates higher for longer, which is hitting people and businesses up and down the country. And of course, overall mismanaging the economy by destroying the so-called fiscal headroom that the Chancellor has against her targets, which is going to mean, I'm afraid, increased taxes in the autumn, which are going to be really difficult for a lot of people who are already struggling because of the choices taken by this Chancellor.
Well, this is what I can't quite understand. You've written to the Office for Budget Responsibility saying, goodness me, we need clarification of Britain's finances. We need new forecasts. I can see, Mel, that you're competing there with a team of children walking into the BBC. So bear with me. You've written to the OBR. We've got the Chancellor in tears on Wednesday, which rocks the financial markets. At some point or other, and Robert Jenrick has said this, he said she needs to consider her position. I can't quite understand why you won't say that. You're clearly concerned about the Chancellor's policies. You're concerned about the negative impact of the autumn budget. You've written this letter to the OBR saying, my God, the state of our finances are appalling. And yet, whenever I ask you, should the Chancellor consider her position, you play Mr. Nice Guy. She needs to consider her position, doesn't she? Because Britain's economy is tanking, according to the Tories.
Well, Camilla, look, they should all go, OK? And if Rachel goes, the Prime Minister should definitely go. We've had far too long over the last year of broken promises. You know, a government that said, for example, they wouldn't tax our farmers and then came in and did exactly that. They said they wouldn't means test the winter fuel payments for pensioners, then they did exactly that. They said they wouldn't put up our taxes left, right and centre, including national insurance, and they did exactly that. And we've now seen a government that is so chaotic, it's almost U-turning by the minute. U-turning on the winter fuel payment, U-turning on our pressure for them to have a national inquiry into grooming gangs, U-turning under pressure from their own backbenchers just last week on welfare, which is leading to this growing black hole of unfunded commitments. Okay, there's about £7 billion of those lying around, and that's why I wrote to the OBR. Is that what this government said was they would not get into the business of unfunded commitments, and we don't know what the figures are now going to be looking like, and yet we're taking big decisions in Parliament.
So when you say they should all go, you're saying that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor should consider their positions and resign?
I think the whole front bench is, taking our country in entirely the wrong
should they
direction.
Resign?
I believe that the Prime Minister is. So look, I think they should all go. Right? I don't want to see a Labour government. I don't know why we keep playing these word.
Well, you're saying
games and all this.
Well, no,
Camilla,
you're playing word
day,
games. You want them to be voted out, or you want them to resign?
No, I'm saying. I'm saying that I think, given your question to me was, do you think they should stay in place? I think the whole lot of them are not fit for purpose. It's quite obvious that the way that the economy is being mismanaged at the moment is hitting people right up and down our country, and I'm afraid it's possibly going to get even worse in the autumn. So, that's not a record that would substantiate most people staying in their roles. Yeah.
OK. All right. Let's move on to a story on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Axe sickness benefits for foreigners, Tories urge. Many people watching and listening to this, Mel Stride, might wonder why on earth foreigners can claim disability benefits, and why the Tories allowed that to happen, presumably for the last 14 years.
So what we're putting forward, Camilla, is an amendment to the welfare bill, such as it is, because it's been largely gutted by this government, but what remains of it, to basically say that the government should come forward with a discussion document to look at this whole area, because we do believe that British citizenship should mean something, and when it comes to welfare, we know that the costs are ever spiralling upwards, and we need to get that under control, and that's a big dividing line between ourselves and Labour, and indeed between ourselves and Reform, who want to spend more, for example, by removing the two-child benefit cap. So we believe there should be a serious discussion about this in terms of arresting the size of the welfare bill.
But why on earth did the Tories allow people who aren't UK citizens to claim benefits of up to £1,200 a month? Why on earth didn't you do something about it when you were actually in power?
So what we did do, and I was Secretary of State at Work and Pensions for the last 18 months of the last government, was to bring in some very fundamental reforms around the work capability assessment. That's the gateway into these long-term sickness and disability benefits. And the OBR actually scored those reforms as meaning £5 billion worth of savings and seeing 450,000 fewer people going on to those benefits and actually then instead heading in towards the world of work. And we had, just if I could finish, we had very detailed plans, particularly around personal independence payments that we'd already consulted on, and then the general election interrupted that process, and all of these kind of other issues which we would have brought forward had we been elected to make very substantial savings. In our manifesto we had a further £12 billion of savings per year. So that was the clear direction of travel, backed up by the fact that we'd actually proved that we could make very significant savings in welfare.
But you didn't ever say while in office that you should stop foreigners from claiming sickness benefits, did you?
So there is a moment in time at which all sorts of policies come forward. We are under new leadership under Camilla Badenoch. This is, I think, a very important area that we should be looking at. But, Camilla, that shouldn't detract from the very important things that, firstly, we did when we were in office to grip welfare, and secondly, the very clear plans, fully funded, fully costed plans we had, going much further. And
I know you did things to grip welfare, and I think we should give Ian Duncan Smith credit for reducing that welfare bill by £31 billion. But let me ask you this, Mel Stride. How much would you reduce the welfare bill by now? Because Jeremy Hunt, of all people, is saying, let's shave £50 billion off it. How much would you shave off it? Give me a figure now.
Yeah, so we are going through a policy development process that will take some time. At the time of the next election, we will have absolutely clear proposals as to exactly what we're going to do. We don't know what the world's going to look like in 4 years' time. But what I am saying is that we have a track record of getting on top of welfare spending and making savings, and that was £5 billion when I was Secretary of State, and about 500,000 people, fewer people going on to those benefits, as confirmed by the OBR, and we went into the last election with further savings of £12 billion a year. And yes, there is indeed more work and more thinking to be done on the issue of foreign nationals. We think it's important that British citizenship means something. We think it's important that we get on top of welfare bills around that particular issue, and our amendment is calling on the government to come forward with a discussion document so that we can go into that area of policy in greater detail, because we need to get on top of the welfare bill in a way that this government has basically given up on, and in a way that Reform is prepared to spend even more on welfare when you look at things like the two-child cap, and we don't think that's right. We think work matters, Camilla, more than just being on benefits. It's getting people into work that matters.
Work matters. We're both working on a Sunday morning, and I'm grateful as ever for your contribution, Mel Stride. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Next week promises more sunshine and fewer showers. We've had some quite heavy ones around during today. They will tend to be easing off as we head throughout this evening and overnight, but some further spells of rain are very likely for parts of Wales and England as we do head into the early hours of Monday morning. Some clearer spells developing for areas further towards the north, and that could lead to a relatively fresh night. Temperatures in towns and cities around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius, but single figures is likely in some rural areas. Do watch out for a few of those lingering heavy showers just first thing on Monday morning, particularly across the far southeast of England, and we could also see a few of them drifting in for North Wales, parts of Merseyside and Cheshire as well. But generally the theme is that things will be turning drier. Quite a lot of sunshine around for Northern Ireland and Scotland to kick off Monday morning. A fairly pleasant start here, still with a brisk breeze in place, so a fresh morning nonetheless, but that sunshine should become a bit more prevalent across many areas as we do move throughout the day. Those showers easing off, and there will be a lot of dry, fine weather around for many of us. Temperatures are expected to be around average for the time of year. We'll likely see mid to high teens across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, where we'll be closer towards 23 degrees Celsius across the far south of England. But that breeze that is in place may just make it feel a touch cooler. As we move into Tuesday, high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic, but there are still a few fronts just pushing their way into the far northwest of Scotland. So we could see cloud building for Northern Ireland and the Outer Hebrides with a few spots of rain later on in the day. A few showers also just skirting the far east of England, but generally there will be a lot of sunshine to be had, and generally with lighter winds as well, it should be feeling pretty pleasant. That sunshine looks to become increasingly widespread as we head throughout the week, and those temperatures are set to climb close towards 30 degrees Celsius for some of us. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. With me now is Rosie Duffield, the Member of Parliament for Canterbury, Whitstable and the Villages. Lovely to see you this morning. Look, let's start. Hello. Let's start with the Chancellor crying in the House of Commons on Wednesday. I'm asking you because you once made that comment when you left the Labour Party that, quotes, it was like leaving an abusive relationship and that the party and indeed the Prime Minister had a woman problem. Did we see that play out last week?
I think by his own admission, he failed completely to notice that Rachel Reeves was so distressed, which is quite extraordinary. But then when you're up against it at the dispatch box, perhaps that is possible. I guess he was concentrating on his answers. But surely if you work so closely with someone, you've got some idea of the fact that they might not actually be able to go into the chamber. And she was damned if she did, damned if she didn't. We all felt terrible watching that, I think. I don't know what it was that was going on with her, but she shouldn't have been there.
She shouldn't have been there, I think, even if she did have a personal problem in the background that obviously hasn't been commented on. And I was just saying to Tim Montgomery, who was reviewing the newspapers with me this morning, there's a story in the Mail on Sunday saying the Tories warned Labour about Rachel's tears 17 minutes before PMQs. So there was knowledge that she was very upset before she even stepped towards the front bench. What is it with Labour? I mean, when you said it had a women problem, and this has been something echoed actually by Louise Haigh after she got fired as Transport Secretary, what's going on? Is Number 10 too blokey? We obviously know historically they can't elect a female leader, but just speak to what the atmosphere might have been like last week for the Chancellor with so much criticism of her in the press.
I think, you know, women who get in the way or who get a bit awkward get briefed against, i.e. the people who are paid an awful lot of money, the unelected kind of lads, now they're in number 10, that were in the Leader of the Opposition's office and sort of dotted throughout those Labour networks. They're paid a lot of money and they brief against mostly women. If you look at since Starmer became Prime Minister, Sue Gray, Lou Haig, Annalise Dodds, you know, all of the people leaving, Vicky Foxcroft, me, all women. I don't think that's a coincidence because, I mean, I've heard recently that some other Secretary of States have been briefed against, but the journalists haven't gone with those stories, mostly if they're political editors who are women. It's all part of the pattern. Women who are awkward get shunted out of the way or their lives get made to feel very uncomfortable.
That's interesting. The other one that springs to mind is the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy. She's also been the subject of rumours, and Bridget Phillipson, actually, who I interviewed earlier, and we're going to play it out a little later. You know, these people might be reshuffled out. Yeah, not really hearing that about any of the men. No, it is always the women. That's an interesting observation. Do you know anything about these rumours of a row between the Chancellor and either Angela Rayner or the Prime Minister? Have you heard anything from your insiders?
Angela Rayner is obviously not in the same political sort of wing of the party as Rachel Reeves. I imagine they probably do clash over things like the spending on all of the houses and all the other projects that Angela Rayner is in charge of. But I don't personally know any of those rumours. It's a very tight-knit circle and I've never been part of that.
No, fair enough. What do you make of a year of Keir Starmer? We were just looking at some polling in the Mirror that makes for extremely uncomfortable reading. Is he on the right or wrong track? Only 8% think he's on the right track, 55% say wrong. His approval rating is now below that, let me stress that, below that of Gordon Brown.
It's an absolute disaster, Camilla. They have these expensive lads that I've just talked about who will spin things, in other words, make up stuff to say, you know, it's not that bad, he's doing a good job. Certain loyal MPs will repeat that, but nobody believes that. The public aren't stupid. Voters have been let down. It's not what they voted for. If you vote Labour, you expect a Labour government, and that's not what we've seen from day one.
But do you think that the rot has set in now? Can they recover from this? Because we've got a lot of time, haven't we, until the next general election. We're all behaving as if there's going to be an election next week. There won't be. It'll be 3 to 4 years from now.
That's really true. And you know, having been a reporter on this, you know, in politics for a long time, that is a huge amount of time in politics. That's saying a week is a long time in politics is really true. And we were all ready to give up on Starmer after the Hartlepool by-election some 4 years ago. And he did manage to turn it around. But I'm not sure how strong that turnaround was. I think that was the Tories imploding. So if he's come from that base, there's not a lot to build on. If you don't build your foundations and your convincing story within the first year, you're standing on shifting sand. There's no progress to be made if you can't even get to the first solid step of showing the country what your story is, what you stand for. So I think there might be a few shallow gains and some positive news in the next 3 or 4 years, but the foundations are rotten, and I don't think they can come back from this.
So do you think it's more a case that they haven't got a vision that they can spell out to the country? That's been the damaging thing, rather than the U-turns? I suppose the U-turns haven't helped, Rosie.
But it's all of it. He's not a convincing leader, not only to the public, but to his own MPs, never has been. There's no vision, there's no inspiration. Look at all the people, the groups of people that have been let down, you know, OAPs, farmers, all the people that we constantly talk about, and as MPs will be told by those groups we're never voting Labour again. So all of they've let down that voter base. Working people are turning away from Labour. So I think there's so many things that have gone wrong that I mean, Keir, I would bet, cannot lead Labour into the next election.
Wow, that's quite the statement. Who would be able to convince you to return to Labour if they were leader?
At the moment, I'm not sure I could be convinced. There's always rumours that Wes Streeting is sort of between Wes Streeting and Angie Rayner, and I guess they're two different wings of the party. Maybe someone else will come down the middle, who knows? I think the public could go with Wes Streeting. Labour members and activists and union people would go with Angie Rayner. She's very popular with members. So I think it's a question of who they're trying to galvanise, and they'll need the troops on the ground to deliver leaflets and to get through to the next election. Wes Streeting's got a very small majority at the moment, so he's got to work in his own patch. I don't think whoever takes over is going to lead the Labour Party to victory in the next election, though, I'm afraid. I don't want that to be true, but I think Labour are finished for a while.
Also, we now have Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana in their own party, and apparently Wes Streeting is one of their targets. They're very much hoping they can unseat centrist MPs, if you can call Wes Streeting that, from his seat in Ilford North and others. How worried should Labour be about this Corbyn redux, this Corbyn revival?
I think quite worried, because I now sit on the naughty benches, as we call it, with some of those independents and Jeremy Corbyn. They're gaining popularity, and as Tim McGorry was just saying, the way that we vote as a country is splintering now. It's not just the two main parties dominating everything. I think people are looking at issues, and that's why those independent MPs did so well. And yes, Wes Streeting's seat is a typical threatened one by those independents, because Gaza is a big issue there.
A quick word on the Supreme Court ruling, because I've not had a chance to speak to you since that momentous day. And there are concerns that a number of key institutions, including the Department for Education, still haven't come up with guidance, in that case for schools and children who are identifying as a different gender. What's happening here? Do we think that there is some roadblocks being put up by the blob, Rosie?
I suspect that civil servants are all over the place on this. We've seen lots of institutions not willing to accept the Supreme Court judgment. It's been a real problem. And MPs are still fighting against the Supreme Court judgment. Those MPs clearly don't understand that the majority of the public are with that Supreme Court judgment and are just basically about common sense. Not unkindness, not unfairness, but common sense and biological reality. And I think those institutions like the DfE, head teachers have been waiting for guidance since the last government. They need to get on with it, really.
All right, Rosie Duffield, we need to leave it there, but thank you very much, as ever, for your time and your candour this morning. Thank you.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The fresh northwesterly winds that are currently across the UK are also beginning to spread into other areas of Western Europe and helping to ease the heat wave that they've had here recently. Still, though, there are plenty of heavy showers and thunderstorms here, particularly across parts of Iberia, the Alps and towards the Balkans. The heat, though, is getting squeezed towards eastern areas of continental Europe, and so here temperatures are still going to be notably above average as we head over the next few days, but with some sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We all love a bit of polling, don't we? And who better to discuss the state of the nation than founder and director of Merlin Strategy, Scarlett Maguire, who joins me in the studio. Now, I like this from your research. Labour are only holding on to 7 in 10 of their 2024 voters, with Reform the main beneficiaries. So 3 in 10 are going to Reform now. Although it's a marathon, not a sprint, this. Are we being a bit premature with all these numbers?
I do actually think that you're right to say that we can get a bit carried away with ourselves, especially thinking about, I know there was an MRP out today in the Sunday Times with seat projections. I think everyone can get a bit too excited, especially this far out from a general election. But what I do think it shows for Labour, so Labour are only holding on to 7 in 10 of their voters, as you say, and we actually have it slightly higher than other pollsters. Other pollsters show them bleeding more to different parties. And you're right, the main beneficiaries Reform, some are going to the Greens as well, some are going to Lib Dems, but Reform have the most. That is significant. And I think we also asked other questions as part of that survey, and we discovered things like 3 in 10 Labour voters regret their vote. Half of Labour voters think they're moving too slowly to deliver change. This is not a very good position for a government that won a big majority only a year ago.
Only a year ago? I mean, just give us an analysis of just how bad the year has been, because I made the point earlier that it's unbelievable in a way that his approval rating, Keir Starmer, is now lower than Gordon Brown's at the height of the global financial crisis. I mean, that is low. Who's been lower? Liz Truss?
Well, but Liz Truss didn't make it this far. So if any Prime Minister that has made it this far, especially a newly elected one, Keir Starmer has the worst on record. It's been about the last 50 years since pollsters have been gathering this sort of data. And again, it's quite a shocking indictment. For me, you're absolutely right to bring up Gordon Brown, and for me the most shocking one was actually a comparison to Rishi Sunak, because if you think about when Rishi Sunak took control of the Conservative Party after the Liz Truss sort of debacle and what happened there, after Boris Johnson, after Partygate, after all of that chaos in the Conservative Party, and somehow Keir Starmer has still got worse approval ratings than Rishi a year in after 14 years of baggage, and I think that is quite extraordinary.
That is damning, isn't it? Right, just talk us through the maths. Now we have a kind of 4-party system. Is that magic number right, that Reform need 31.5% as a vote share to get a majority? Is that right?
It's how some pollsters have calculated. Our first-past-the-post system means it's very difficult to predict exactly how percentages will map out onto the percentages of seats won. One thing we do know is, however, and I think it's probably why Reform have gone quite quiet on electoral reform, which is something they used to talk a lot about, and
they
appreciate
don't want
it's quite very
proportional representation anymore. It's
exactly.
Funny that,
Well, exactly, because now, as we saw in the local elections, they are benefiting from the first-past-the-post system, and they won in the local elections. They won more seats than the percentage of the vote they got, and we're in a situation where if Labour start doing even worse than they are now, I mean, again, Labour polling in the mid-20s is truly shocking for the party, and that could lead. We saw that projection today, Labour were ending up with only 126 seats. That is so awful. That's so much worse than with Michael Foot in 1983 or with Jeremy Corbyn in 2019. That is astonishingly bad for the Labour Party. But the worse Labour do, the easier it becomes for Reform to sneak through on less of a share of vote.
We'll get on to Compo in just a minute. On the Tories, when people say they're finished, are they finished?
It's, I think it's too early to say at this point. One thing you can say, though, is that to go backwards after your worst ever electoral defeat is not a very good place to be in.
No.
And if I was the Conservatives, yes, we've seen that, and when you talk to Conservatives to say, well, Reform might blow themselves up, and obviously we've seen a little bit more chaos from Reform over this weekend.
James
you can never rule that out. But what I would say to that is that I don't think that necessarily still helps the Conservatives. The Conservatives have not fixed their brand at all, and more importantly than that, they're not even cutting through with the public. The public aren't listening to them. They're not paying any attention to them. The Conservatives, I think, are going to have to show pretty dramatically that they've changed and they've got some energy back before they might be able to consider a revival.
How then, when we plant Jeremy Corbyn into the scene, might that affect things? Just talk us through that maths of in 2017 he got more votes.
Yeah, I mean, in 2017 it was astonishing. 2017, and again, think about the percentages we've been talking at the moment, with no party really polling above 30%, with Labour in the mid-20s, with the Conservatives below 20. In 2017, Jeremy Corbyn got 40% of the vote. In 2019, he only just underperformed Keir Starmer in terms of percentage of vote share that Keir Starmer got at the last election. And I think, crucially, Jeremy Corbyn, much like Nigel Farage, has very high name recognition. So it's very hard to get a new party off the ground. Places like, people like Change UK proved that, didn't they?
Yes. Where's Chuka-Ramuna now?
Well, exactly.
Who knows? Where's Anna Soubry? Who cares?
Right.
Carry on.
But they never had the same name recognition as Jeremy Corbyn. And what I'm quite interested in is the Greens have quietly been polling their best ever polling performance. They've been getting about 10% of the vote.
Greens?
Yeah, the Greens. And there's a leadership candidate called Zach Polanski at the moment who is looking, I don't know whether he will win the leadership, but if he does, he's looking to move that party to a more Corbynite platform, explicitly Corbynite, left-wing populist, very similar to the sort of momentum we saw behind Corbyn in 2019 and 2017. And I wonder whether that is actually the future for whatever it is that Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana are planning, if this new leadership were to take place with the Greens. And if there was any way then for those people to start working together under the Greens banner, if I was Labour, I would then be incredibly worried.
Well, how dangerous would that be for Labour?
I think it'd be incredibly dangerous. And you have to remember, it's not even just dangerous in terms of how many seats the Greens might end up, which still might not be very many. It could still be a handful. But we've seen what can happen with a handful of MPs in terms of reform, in terms of how much they can then dictate the politics. It's more about how they can end up costing that ruling party seats. And I'd be very interested to see whether that sort of Green Party would be the sort of reform to the Conservatives in 2024, or UKIP to the Conservatives in 2015, and exert a different sort of pressure.
In a way, the public have never had more choice.
Yeah, they have. That's absolutely right. And that's also why we're seeing a range of independent candidates coming through and local movements. I mean, I think local dynamics in each constituency has sort of never been more important, actually. And there are pluses and downsides to that, but it is certainly a very different sort of environment to the one we've been traditionally used to.
Good time to be a pollster.
It's quite nice.
Good time to be a journalist. Scarlett Maguire, thank you very much indeed for joining me on GB News. Thank you to all of my guests. They've been brilliant. Really enjoyed the Bridget Phillipson interview in the studio. Do take note, Labour colleagues, you can come in and speak to me.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Next week promises more sunshine and fewer showers. We've had some quite heavy ones around during today. They will tend to be easing off as we head throughout this evening and overnight, but some further spells of rain are very likely for parts of Wales and England as we do head into the early hours of Monday morning. Some clearer spells developing for areas further towards the north, and that could lead to a relatively fresh night. Temperatures in towns and cities around 10 to 14 degrees Celsius, but single figures is likely in some rural areas. Do watch out for a few of those lingering heavy showers just first thing on Monday morning, particularly across the far southeast of England. And we could also see a few of them drifting in for North Wales, parts of Merseyside and Cheshire as well. But generally, the theme is that things will be turning drier. Quite a lot of sunshine around for Northern Ireland and Scotland to kick off Monday morning. A fairly pleasant start here, still with a brisk breeze in place, so a fresh morning nonetheless. But that sunshine should become a bit more prevalent across many areas as we do move throughout the day. Those showers easing off, and there will be a lot of dry, fine weather around for many of us. Temperatures are expected to be around average for the time of year. We'll likely see mid to high teens across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, where we'll be closer towards 23 degrees Celsius across the far south of England. But that breeze that is in place may just make it feel a touch cooler. As we move into Tuesday, high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic, but there are still a few fronts just pushing their way into the far northwest of Scotland. So we could see cloud building for Northern Ireland and the Outer Hebrides with a few spots of rain later on in the day. A few showers also just skirting the far east of England, but generally there will be a lot of sunshine to be had, and generally with lighter winds as well, it should be feeling pretty pleasant. That sunshine looks to become increasingly widespread as we head throughout the week, and those temperatures are set to climb close towards 30 degrees Celsius for some of us. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the